And if I'm wrong, please tell me. But I read online that you DM'd the CEO of SportsGrid on LinkedIn, basically saying, "Give me this job," and that's how you got in. It's one of the ballsiest moves in the industry, but it worked.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And with me, as usual, my co-host, Brian McKeon. Brian, happy Friday. It's a Friday, but we're not doing Fan Mail Friday.
No, we're going to have Ariel Epstein on. Really fun interview. You guys are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah. So before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to Locked On Yankees on whichever podcasting platform you prefer, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, hit the bell so you're notified whenever our videos go live. So as Brian said, we talked to MLB Network host and sports betting analyst Ariel Epstein.
The fourth guest of our Locked On Yankees interview series is an MLB Network and NBA TV host. She's been covering baseball and all sports for a better part of 5 years in the spotlight, at least. She's been seen on FanDuel TV, SportsGrid, SNY, SiriusXM, Yahoo, a 2016 Syracuse grad with over 80,000 Twitter followers and 26,000 Instagram followers. Please welcome the prop queen, Ariel Epstein. Ariel, what's up? Thank you for joining the show.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. It's a hell of an intro.
Thank you.
I'm like, oh, I did.
We do one for every person, and every person seems to be touched by the intro. So now I have to keep doing it for everybody.
That's so funny. Some of us have a hard time. We're so looking ahead all the time. You don't take those moments to realize, oh yeah, I was on like 80 million different shows in the last 5 years and had like 18 jobs in the last 5 years, but here we are.
You've been everywhere, and everybody that's interested, definitely in the sports gambling world, but even in the sports world when it comes to social media and stuff, is aware of you. But I want to go back to the start. So you grew up in the Rockland County area. What's your childhood like? Like what piques your sports interest? Is it your parents? Is it grandparents, uncles, aunts? What gets you so into, because you're into every sport. So what got your sports interest so high at a young age?
Grandpa, it makes me emotional. He just passed away in July, but he is the driving force of everything. And my dad might be a little mad if I say that, but it's fine. Grandpa was the first one that gave me, like, he said, just because you're a girl and you're not going to like play professional baseball doesn't mean that you can't be involved in the industry in some capacity. He took me to my first game, him and my dad. Now this is my mom's dad. That's like my grandpa that I'm talking about, but him and my dad are big sports fans. So grandpa and my dad took me and my sister to our first Yankees game, and I was literally wearing a pink like princess dress. That was when I was about 5. I'll never forget, the Yankees lost the World Series to the Marlins in 2003. Now, my grandpa is a diehard Yankees fan, and my dad is a diehard Orioles fan since he's from Baltimore, so they always fought in baseball season. I remember feeling so bad for my grandpa when the Yankees lost in 2003. He was so defeated. I looked at him, and I love him so much, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love the Yankees. And my grandpa, the next year, he went to opening day every year. He used to take my dad to opening day because my grandpa had season tickets, the old stadium. So he took my dad all the time because he didn't have any sons. He only had 3 daughters who had absolutely zero interest in going to baseball games. My dad and him would go, and one year they brought me home a Derek Jeter jersey. That was, I think, 2003 or 2004. I learned who Derek Jeter was, and that was the end. I became a diehard Yankees fan and loved every single bit of the 2004 season until the Yankees lost to the Red Sox. That's besides the point. I cried. I don't think I came out of my room for a week. Then I started to really learn sports because I learned how much I loved the Yankees. I had to love other sports too, because when the season was over, I was so devastated. I felt like I lost everything. I started learning football. And I learned all of that through video games. That's how I found my love for sports, was through Xbox.
Very similar to all of us, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't I didn't want to leave my apartment when the Yankees lost in 04, but I had to go to work the next day. And they sent an email around my office. I worked at NBC at the time. They sent an email around the office and said, no one speak to Stacy unless she speaks to you first. And at about noon, I thought to myself, why is no one coming up to me? Like, what is happening here? So I finally said something to someone. They're like, oh, we didn't want to. I'm like, guys, I saw this coming from game 5. It was like a slow motion car wreck. I knew they were going to lose. It's fine. I'm okay. They're like, okay. So
what happened to me that year, even though I was I'm not going to say what level of schooling I was in, but I'll tell you my teacher, he created a PowerPoint in math class. It was right after the Yankees lost. So he creates this PowerPoint everyone knew I was a diehard. Like, I was in it. I was wearing Yankees jerseys and Yankees hats to school every single day. I was obsessed with, like, I get to school the day after they lose. My math teacher, his entire PowerPoint presentation is of Yankees fans crying. The whole thing. And then at the end, the grand finale was a picture of me at Yankee Stadium that said, "You lose." I was completely taunted.
Awful. Who does that to a kid?
It was and everyone in the class is laughing at me. It wasn't geared towards, and you'd think we're in New York, everyone's a Yankees fan. No. The whole PowerPoint my teacher dedicated to me.
Wow.
Which school?
So I guess you had an eye for the star at first, right? Like you were the public attention from the beginning.
Wait, which school was it?
New City Elementary.
Unbelievable. I had friends who went to New City Elementary. Unbelievable. So
yeah,
you're
in 5th grade.
Yeah. That's mean. That's mean.
Oh, it was total hazing. I was getting hazed from everybody.
My homeroom teacher at Festa was a diehard Mets fan, and I started in 1986, fall of 86. And he went around the first day and asked everyone who you root for. And there were only 2 of us who said Yankees. And he taunted us that entire fall. The entire fall. He also took a projector and drew the Mets logo on his chalkboard towards the side where he didn't teach. And he had the countdown once the playoffs started, how many games they needed to win the World Series.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's amazing what teachers do to you. Yeah.
I'll tell you a better story though. So a happy story for Yankees fans. I was in 9th grade when the Yankees were in the World Series in 2009. Every year my family goes to Aruba. And I know that sounds so cliche for a New Yorker, but my grandparents actually have been going to Aruba since before there was even an airport. They pre-bought their timeshares before anything was built. There was one hotel on the island. So I will claim myself as an OG, but that's besides the point. Every year we go to Aruba, and it's always during the World Series. It's the first week of November. Usually, whatever, Yankees might lose by then, so all's good. Until the 2009 season. And I said to my parents, I said, do I have to go to Aruba this year? They said, yeah, you're going. Like, it's family trip. It was paid 4 months ago. You're going. I said, but the Yankees are in the World Series. So my grandpa and I were able to go to game 1 where they lost. Now we have to fly out to Aruba. My grandparents come, so at least I'm with grandpa. This was 2009. So there wasn't like TVs that had access to our feeds yet in Aruba. Like, if you did, you had to go to like Hooters to watch sports. Like, that was it. And we did do that. Trust me, we do that for but me and Dad in Hooters is a pretty funny sight, but that's anything. So it was like at night, we somehow finagled on the beach. There was like a projection screen where they used to do their movie beach nights. We connected my laptop somehow to the projection screen off a hotspot, and we were able to get it on the projection screen on the beach every World Series game. And I got an audience. Like, we had probably 25 people every night on the beach, me and grandpa sitting there, and that's how I watched the Yankees win in 2009, which sounds horrible, but I was devastated to watch it there. But it was, in hindsight, a good story.
Yeah, well, you weren't at like celebration age at that point where you're really going to be like drinking and hanging out at the bars and stuff. So it's
Don't tell myself that at 15. I had my own ways.
You were at Billy's and Stan's at that point, though. That's for sure.
No,
so that's the Yankee fandom. How do you get into the Ravens then? Is that because your dad's from Baltimore? I'm assuming that's where the big Ravens passion comes from.
Yeah, Dad's from Baltimore. I watched them win the Super Bowl in 2000. I've been in the trenches with like Kyle Bowler and those terrible years, but we did have a lot of fun with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and all those defensive players. just was fun to be watching football Sunday at home with dad and have that fan base to root for. And they would always be in it in most years. It just, they couldn't, like, the Steelers were still like the team. But then the Ravens ended up winning my freshman year of college. And, but yeah, I was always a Ravens fan through dad. And we're diehards. I went to Foxborough when they beat the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl and ended up sitting like front row 50-yard line when all the Patriots fans left. So I moved myself up and stood there in negative 10 degrees and snow and didn't care. So guess I'm doing it again on Saturday.
So you went to Syracuse, which is not uncommon for people who end up working in sports broadcasting. Not me. I went to Oswego, but
Oh, a lot of my friends went there.
Yeah. So how many schools did you apply to? Was Syracuse your number one choice?
So a lot of people don't know I actually did Penn State for 2 years. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that because I graduated Syracuse, and I give Syracuse a lot of credit for who I am today. Penn State, I loved the school. I had like some issues with like finding the wrong friend group, just wasn't very happy there. Newhouse, I knew was where the best of the best went. And it's no knock on Penn State, but I knew I was only going to transfer to Newhouse. And I was this like stupid senior in high school that thought if I don't get into my major right away, I'm not going. I was the oldest, so like I didn't know from other people that, oh, you could go to Syracuse and then transfer into Newhouse. Like I didn't think it was that kind of, like I heard about it, but didn't know how easy it was. So I went to Penn State. My number one was actually Maryland because that's where my parents went and my parents met at Maryland. I wanted to follow in their footsteps. My dad was so excited because I used to watch Maryland football with him. Maryland basketball with him all the time in the ACC, and we watched them beat Duke in the ACC championship, and we like had this whole handshake. Like we became big Maryland basketball fans. And then I didn't get into Maryland, which my mom was like weirdly happy about. She said, "We did that already. We don't need to do that." She wanted to try something new. Okay, you wanted to try something new. I didn't, but okay. So I ended up going to Penn State because I get into the communications program right away. I was able to start my major right away. I was able to do the TV and radio stations. Again, just wasn't so happy there. So it was like Newhouse or I'm going abroad, like one or the other. Got into Newhouse, and it was like you realize comparing programs why Newhouse is what it is because of all the networking that they bring into that building.
It's crazy that I don't think anybody's known that you had a Penn State affiliation. Do you pull for them at all? Like tonight, like later on tonight, I guess we're recording a little early, but are you going to be pulling for them later on tonight? How does that, or is it just, it's all cues for you?
No, I will. I'll do Penn State football and Syracuse basketball. It's just because of the way it was. Obviously now Syracuse football is like better than Syracuse basketball.
Yeah.
But Penn State football, I still root for it. It was awesome. Like Penn State football was a really cool experience. So many people know about Syracuse. I actually went to K-State with my friend Kelly. She went to K-State, and I went to my first K-State football game a few months ago. So I'm sitting there and everyone's like, "Oh, like you went to Syracuse, that's cool." They're like, "But like this environment's awesome. Like you've never been in a college football experience like this." And I go, "I hate to tell you, I went to Penn State for 2 years."
I did the whiteout. Like
I felt so bad. I'm like, I'm not trying to one up you, but I did go to Penn State.
I mean, there's nothing. I've been to a couple college football games now in big environments, and I did LSU. I did Ohio State, but Penn State, the whiteout, there's nothing like that. So you definitely
want an overtime game. It was our homecoming whiteout game. It was 4 overtimes with Allen Robinson and Christian Hackenberg against Michigan. It was unreal. So
a lot of people don't know this about you too. Your first job out of college, I believe, is in North Carolina at a TV station. Mm-hmm. Is that just simply first job that answers you go work there, or is there something to it to why you're moving there? Because I mean, everyone that seems to know you as a New Yorker, right?
Yeah.
So what goes into North Carolina?
It wasn't the first job offer I got, but it was the best first-ish job offer I got. So like the first offer out of college, everyone tells you when you leave Syracuse or any of these schools, you have to start in the local markets to get your experience on TV. Because if you go into a big market right out of college and you're not ready, you will always be known as the person that messed up. Whereas if you go to the local markets and you are working with a very small population, they're actually more so going to be proud of you when you make it, even though they might hate you when you mess up at the beginning. And I'm saying that from experience. They hated me the first year. I was terrible. But yeah, so I went to North Carolina. At first I got offered, where was the first place? Not Oneonta. I just said it before and now I'm forgetting. Somewhere in upstate New York. That was my first offer. And they didn't really cover anything outside of like, I don't know, like minor league hockey. So I was like,
Okay.
I'm out. Then I got an offer from Alpena, Michigan, which was like the worst market in sports. I mean, in news in general. It was like market 210, the lowest market on the totem pole. I said, my Newhouse studios look nicer than their studios. Like, I'm not going there. And then New Bern, North Carolina offered me, and it just so happened that their sports director is from New York. So it was a really nice transition, and like we got along really well because we're both hard asses, and like he was even more so than me, but he was a really good mentor to me all that time, and we just hit it off from the second I got there. He was like, "You're a hardcore New Yorker. I like it. Like, you're in." And I worked there for almost 3 years, making $30,000 a year, working 70 hours a week. And I was only paid for like a maximum of like 5 or 10 hours of overtime a month. And like, they didn't really care that I worked so hard and did as best they could, because like, that's local news for you. And you make 30 grand and you're just like, whatever. But it was the best experience. And what I was just actually telling someone who I just spoke to earlier, who's a Syracuse grad, he's 24. And they said, a lot of people don't realize that even just 10 years ago or whatever it was, that the only way to do digital media then was if you were digital media for a sports team. Like, there was no TikTok blowing you up and getting paid for being online. Like, you didn't get paid for being on X or Instagram or YouTube, or like there was no monetization of that. Like, you had to work for a real job somewhere. So that was like my first gig until 2019.
So you worked for the Boulders here?
Yeah, I did. That was right after I was unemployed I left North Carolina because of contract issues. Like, they couldn't come together on a agreement for keeping me there. So I ended up coming home and was like, you know what? At this point, I got a little bit of local news experience. I've been on TV for 3 years. I'm confident in myself. I'll move home to my parents' house in New York and just like use my contacts and figure it out. So at that time, I have no job, and I hired a broadcast coach because I can't figure out why I'm not getting hired at any of these places. The broadcast coach, her name's Joe Montgomery. She saved my career. She helped me so much with being on air. She looks at me and I think it was at this point, May. She goes, "Is there a minor league baseball team somewhere around your area?" I said, "Yeah, there's a couple." "Why?" She goes, "You're going to go and work there." She goes, "I don't care if you just ask for permission to, like, you're going to get a ring light, like not a ring light." She said, "You're going to get a light." There was no ring lights yet. "You're going to get a light. You're going to get a tripod for your iPhone and a lav mic, and you're going to connect it all through your iPhone, and you're going to shoot stand-ups, and you're going to interview players." So the Rockland Boulders, I reach out to, they paid me $100 a weekend to be their in-stadium host. And then post-game, I would do stand-ups and interview the players on my iPhone. Like, it literally went nowhere except to my broadcast coach, but it was all about getting experience. And it was good for the players too, because they got to like do some interviews and stuff, which is good for them. So yeah, the summer of 2019, I was working for the Boulders and being their in-stadium host, saying like, "Okay, time for the relay race."
That's why you looked familiar to me, because I went to Boulders games all the time.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I had really short hair too, bad haircut. Like, it was just not a time. 2019, from April to October, not a time. But the Boulders were very good to me.
Next up, we'll get into Ariel's journey of how she wound up in the sports gambling world.
Don't forget, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button on our videos, hit the notification so you know when our videos go up. You can also join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. The link is in the description. You'll get text from us. You can text us questions, comments, and reactions to trades and signings. We send out lineups during the season, any roster moves that are made, breaking news, so you don't have to check social media. There's a 14-day free trial. Coming up, more with Ariel Epstein.
What's up, guys? Let me tell you a little bit about Game Time. Now, I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories ever was attending a Shinedown concert last year, and I was able to get tickets at a new venue that I had never seen on Game Time. And let me tell you, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through the thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets for another Shinedown concert that I'm going to because I can't stop seeing them live, and I was using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying the tickets. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's got an all-in pricing feature that shows the total cost upfront. There's no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And thanks again for making Locked On Yankees your first listen. Remember that every Friday is Fan Mail Friday. You can leave questions underneath our videos throughout the week, or you can join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club to get top priority during Fan Mail Friday. That link is in our description. All right, so Ariel, I read a story online of how you got into the sports gambling world. I don't think you were a big sports gambling person at that point in your life, really, or really too aware of it. And this is right as it starts to peak, as the industry starts to peak. And if I'm wrong, please tell me. But I read online that you DM'd the CEO of SportsGrid on LinkedIn, basically saying, "Give me this job," and that's how you got in. It's one of the ballsiest moves in the industry, but it worked.
So actually, there's a little bit more to not that story, but how the gambling thing started. So Syracuse, people know the new house mafia is real. And when I was at Syracuse, this woman, Jody Logston, who works for CBS, came and spoke to students. Kept in touch with her all those years after being in college. When I was unemployed, I met with Jody, and she said, "You really need to meet my friend Kieran Portley. He's the head of CBS Sports HQ." I go and meet with Port, that's what everyone calls him, in July of 2019. And he's like, "Listen, I really like you. You're a go-getter. You know what you want. You have it, but it's not there yet for CBS. But I will give you a mock audition next month, set it up for you in studio, have our co-host, one of our hosts come in and work with you, just so you get an experience of what it's like running a show." And he did. He got like analysts to come on with us. He really ran a mock audition for me, which was so sweet. And really, it meant absolutely nothing except for me to get experience. But he doesn't know that the one thing he had me do changed everything. In one of the scripts, I had to read off a money line. And that was the moment I looked at myself and I go, sports betting, that has not blown up yet. I loved fantasy. I played fantasy sports since I was in 6th grade. Kicked out of multiple leagues with my friends because I kept winning. Like, the boys hated it. But I was like, gambling. Okay. So I left that audition. That meant nothing, but it changed everything because I just read a money line. And that was August 2019. I started studying sports betting for about a month. And then I saw this company, SportsGrid, through a friend of a friend. So I knew one person that was like normal work there. But if you looked up their website, it looked like you'd buy a fake ID off of it. Like, it was really sketchy. So if it wasn't for this one guy who I knew that knew someone that worked there, I definitely wouldn't have done what I did. I DM'd the CEO, Lou Mayon, on LinkedIn. And I said, "Hey, you have no females working for your network. I could be that female. I would love to audition." And I sent him my reel. And he had his number 2 guy, Greg, call me, or number 3, Mike's his number 2, number 3 guy, Greg, call me. And he was like, "Let's bring you in on audition." And their studio was in the Renaissance Hotel on 7th Ave in Midtown. So it was great. I got to go to the city every day. I got to work that way through like a sports betting company that ended up getting picked up by FanDuel, MSG Network, SiriusXM down the line. Our show ended up doing really well. So yeah, that was gambling.
It's incredible. It really is.
It was like COVID times, and like I started October 2019, and it all took off in COVID. We were the only ones that really built. I had COVID March 2020. I got it before the shutdown. The night Rudy Gobert shut down the NBA for testing positive, I was consuming COVID at this restaurant for my mom's best friend's birthday. And I like 3 days later, like called out of work and was like, I can't move. But there was no testing yet. So it took until I didn't know I had COVID until like the end of the second week. My mom was already negative, but we donated plasma, so we knew we had it, whatever. But during that time that we were like crawling, like we barely could move of COVID, we built me a home studio actually in this bedroom, my childhood bedroom. We built a home studio in here like week 1 of COVID, and nothing was run out of like everything on Amazon ended up being sold out, but we got it so early that we got lights, green screen, everything you can imagine, a new webcam, like all this stuff to create this studio in my childhood bedroom. And because we did that, we were the only ones creating content. So that's when everyone started to pick us up.
I remember COVID times. I was doing this, but it wasn't video. We were audio only, but we needed to do shows even though baseball wasn't happening. And they gave us a content calendar and just gave us a list of things we should do for those weeks that we didn't have baseball. And it was fun because I did some, history dives, but that was a rough.
People they say, how did you do gambling in COVID? And I said, well, the first month was definitely a lot of fluff. Like, okay, the odds were still out, like futures were still out if the season were to hypothetically happen.
Yeah.
But the big thing was the NFL draft. It was the most I ever bet the NFL draft in my life. I bet so much on the NFL draft. I did pretty well because I did 18,000 mock drafts. It was the only thing I had to do. We also did a lot of UFC. We did a lot of NASCAR, golf. That all picked up relatively quickly. So we did have stuff to talk about. I just had to learn a lot of sports that I didn't normally do.
So your career blows up to the point where you have over 80,000 I still call it Twitter followers, nearly 30,000 Instagram followers. Does it get challenging for you with the attention you've gotten, and how do you navigate not letting the negative attention get to you? Because as a woman, you almost always get negative attention because, as you said, like what your grandfather said, just because you can't play professional baseball doesn't mean you can't talk about it. But some men have that feeling that women shouldn't talk about sports.
Mm-hmm. That's why I love the gambling space, because I'm not inserting myself into what a male's role. I mean, I guess you could say gambling is, but truthfully, I feel bad. A lot of the women analysts get a lot of crap from men because men are like, you didn't play the sport. We actually gamble much better than most players that played the sport. Like the players that played the sport are terrible at gambling, most of them. My favorite story, and when I go to MLB, especially at MLB Network, it's my favorite thing is how much the players respect me because of my knowledge of combining these worlds. So they think, for example, this happened not this past season. It was like 2 years ago when Diamondbacks ace Zach Gallen was having his Cy Young year. And the only reason he didn't win Cy Young was really because if you looked at his home road splits, they were atrocious. And I caught on to that pretty early on in the season because I call it fishy lines. So a lot of the times with baseball, you bet money lines. So just straight up winners. When a line moves against an ace by 10 cents or more, so like let's say the line was minus 180 for Zach Gallen and now it's minus 170, moved in favor of the underdog. I'm like, why is the line moving against Zach Gallen, who's like the favorite to win Cy Young at the moment? That's weird. So I deep dive in and I realize his first 2-3 starts of the year were on the road atrocious. I go into MLB Network. I speak to Cy Young and World Series winner Jake Peavy, who's a good friend of mine. I love Jake. I said, Diamondbacks are losing today. Let's get out of here. And we're talking on the show. He goes, Ariel, you're nuts. It's Zach Gallen. The Diamondbacks are going to crush. I forget who the opponent was, but it was like a bad opponent. Like they were probably like heavy favorites. I go, Jake, I'm telling you, the line moved like 20 cents against Zach Gallen today. Something weird's going to happen. You're going to be surprised. And I go into the ERA on the road and all this stuff. They upset, like Diamondbacks get upset, like a bad loss. Like Gallen gets blown up for like 5 runs. And PV texts me at midnight. What? I told you. I'm like, so the gambling stuff, you could say all you want. And then some of the players say, well, I had like the flu that day, like, and I didn't know, like, no one knew that, and I played. Said, I don't know, like, the lines sometimes speak for itself. Like, that someone might have found out that you were partying last night, and then you had food poisoning. I don't know. Like,
I'm
so yeah,
curious about that.
but it
I'm
is. I will give you, it is. You have to work a lot harder to get that credibility. You have to work. People will come in and they will quiz you. Like, they will ask you questions. I've had it happen a handful of times where at work someone will like come in and quiz me. I'm like, we are in the same building, honey. Like, what are you thinking? But it's true. And honestly, I answer the questions. I show them up. Then they respect me. Okay, if it takes 5 minutes of my time to show you that I'm smarter, I might be blonde, but you're not gonna get one by me. It's okay. Like, I'm a smart blonde. We're good. So yeah, it's just a lot more work. But I don't if you're gonna I tell women all the time, like, if you're gonna victimize that, people like feed off that. Like, they love seeing you be weak. They love seeing you be upset. Like, they love that stuff. So even if I get comments on social media about that, they're probably not working in the sports industry. I'm living my dream job. I'm in control of my own future and my own destiny. So, and I've lost these jobs, and honestly, like, not in the greatest place right now when it comes to like working. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm going and doing my own thing. And like, you just have to bounce back because this industry doesn't care. They will swallow you up and spit you out, male or female. And you just have to have thick skin and know, like, I'll be good. I'm good. I trust myself and I respect myself. I have really good friends, really good backing. So I just always rely on that.
So let's talk about the Yankees off season so far. Do you think that they're deserving of being a significant favorite to win the American League? And also, what's your true feeling on Juan Soto and what happened this offseason?
The Yankees do deserve to be favored to be a contender for the AL. Absolutely. They have way more depth this year than they did last year. Everyone who's a Yankees fan would know that the Yankees fielding was a problem. There was definitely not the all-star Gold Glove infield that we had in 2009 that started the entire all-star game.
We say this every show. When we were talking about, you mentioned Game 5 of the World Series, we would say that on every show about the 2009 team. Like, if they had the 2009 infield, team would be amazing. Yeah.
Winner.
Yeah.
The communication was off. Sure, we could say that it's poor management and coaching, but come on, these are veteran athletes. We should know how to field a ground ball to first.
You think?
But this team definitely got better. You got some more bats. Of course, the bat of Juan Soto is a huge loss. I can't believe that they've pulled through with Bellinger. I can't believe that they got, and I consider Max Fried a 2.5 pitcher. I can't name him a solid 2. And he's a little bit better than a 3. He's like right there in the middle, but he's a better lefty than Rodon. Yep. You just never know with Rodon too. Maybe you get him like this great year this year, and then it'll be terrible again next year. You never know, but he could be the toss-up. I didn't mind losing Nestor. I would take Max Fried over Nestor Cortez at this point. And I do think and then the closing situation with Evan Williams, finally you get a closer. And I know that the Yankees got lucky last year with making their switch, and you could quote me, ask John Yastrzemski on SNY back in last February. Me and him went head to head, and we're very good friends. Head to head. He was getting mad at me. I said, Clay Holmes is not it. He was, yes, he is. I go, Clay Holmes is not it. He is not the Yankees closer. He is not a closer. He is like the most traumatizing. He's more traumatizing than Aroldis Chapman because he, like, with Chapman that he's a nutcase. Holmes, you think he should be good, and then he breaks your heart. August, he has like an ERA above a 13 in his career. I mean, Clay Holmes was not it. So the Yankees got pretty lucky with like a nice pickup on the bullpen end last year, but that wasn't what lost them in the World Series. What lost them in the World Series is this team never makes contact, and not having DJ LeMahieu was huge. And I'm just talking small contact, not home runs. And don't get me wrong, the 09 team did live and die by the home run too. But they did have Brett Gardner and Derek Jeter who were good at getting on base for the 3, 4, 5 hitters that were power hitters. But yeah, this Yankees team, like, everyone was living and dying by the home run. Like, if they didn't hit the home run, like even a solo shot, like that was it. There was nothing else. There was no rally aside for game 4. There was no rally. There was no sorry. So this year, hopefully they can have more of those contact hitters, and no one's talking about DJ LeMahieu. Like, maybe there is a chance he's okay. I don't really know the insights of that. But losing Juan Soto, feel like we all saw the writing on the wall. When you come
I'm of the feeling, to be honest, before you get to the Juan Soto thing, I don't think LeMahieu's going to make the roster. I think they're going to invite him to spring training, and I don't think he's going to make it out of spring training, honestly. Are you on the Arias camp yet? Who do you think is a good person you want to replace at second base? Because I don't think LeMahieu's making it out of camp, to be honest with you.
I don't either, but again, I've just seen the name pop up around that people are everyone's forgetting about LeMahieu. I would love Arias. This is what I said too about the Padres last year when that whole thing went down with Arias, and everyone's like, "That's not what they need." I said, "Well, he's not making you worse. He's not bad. I mean, nothing about getting Arias is making you any worse. It's going to make you better." I think the Yankees, if anything, and I would love Arias because, again, contact hitter, he's not about the home run. He's going to get on base, and that's what they really, really need. And that would be a huge addition to having even just the Bellingers added to the list. But I would love to see them get a solid number 2. I would love a solid number 2. And maybe they trade for that midway through the season when things happen throughout the year to get another pitcher to complement them. But the Yankees in 2009, when CC when CC lost game 1, and he did get into jams here and there, but realistically it wasn't that bad of a game, but they lost. It was AJ Burnett who put on the craziest game 2 show. And then you have Andy Pettitte. So that 1, 2, 3 was so important. And plus having now a setup situation for a Devin Williams, also really important. I know everyone's saying, "Oh, just wait till the playoffs because Devin Williams, he always chokes in the playoffs." I'm like, okay, and so did Aroldis Chapman, and so did Clay Holmes. So you know what? For an all-star closer, I'm going to be just fine. I'm cool with Devin Williams. We're good.
Next, we'll get to some rapid-fire questions with Ariel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. We're headed into a super playoff weekend with college football playoff and NFL playoffs. You can bet all of it on FanDuel. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Ariel, just quickly, some rapid fire with you. I want to know the last show that you binge watched.
Ooh, I'm watching Landman right now, but binged. Yeah, does that count what I'm currently binge watching?
I guess so, yeah. Or are you are you an Office kind of person? Parks and Rec? Do you go through those or no?
The one I loved the most of those was New Girl.
Okay, interesting.
Love New Girl. The Office, my ex-boyfriend loved, and we did that together. We don't need to rewatch.
Bleachers or Grandstand?
Bleachers. Oh my God, by far.
I completely
not
agree.
Even a question.
Yeah, my season tickets are there. That's the only option.
No, I'm I will spend the extra $100 to sit in the bleachers and not the grandstand.
Completely agree. What's your favorite band? What's your music type?
I love country music. It's a new thing.
Really?
Well, not new actually anymore, but I love country music. So favorite band? But
I guess solo artist then,
probably Morgan Wallen.
Makes sense. Typical would make sense.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, but it's okay.
Besides Aruba, your favorite vacation spot?
Besides Aruba, my favorite. Well, I just went to
Vegas.
I just went to Italy and favorite, absolutely not. It's not Vegas. You can say the place I can't wait to get back to the airport to the most is Vegas. Yeah, I would say I loved my trip to anything in Europe, any kind of traveling like that. I just did Italy for my 30th birthday in July, and it was such a cool experience. I really want to go to Tuscany next. But I'll tell you, my most underrated vacation spot in the United States, I love Charleston. Love. It has everything. It has great bars of all different types. You could be ratchet, you could be fine dining, you could feel elegant, you could shop, you could go to the beach, you could tour. There's so much to do in Charleston. I love that place. So Charleston.
Did you run into any Southern Charmed people?
So actually, apparently, I don't watch those shows, but my friend does. So Southern Hospitality, I think, is the other one.
Yes, the spinoff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at the Pickett event for that app I was telling you about. I helped them run it last year at Yankee Stadium. I'm out to dinner with one of the guys that runs the app. And I was telling him that I'm going to Charleston in like a week or two whenever I was going. He goes, "Oh my God, one of my closest friends is Joe Bradley. He's on that show, Southern Hospitality." My friend Jordan, who's sitting next to me, she's like my best friend. She watches all that stuff. And I just like rely on her. She goes, "You know Joe Bradley?" I'm like, "Who the heck is Joe Bradley?" He's like, "Oh my God, he's like one of the biggest stars of Southern Hospitality. He runs this nightclub in Charleston." And my friend Cole's like, "Yeah, I could introduce you guys and Joe will get you in." So we go to Charleston in August. Joe gets us in front of the line. We start talking sports betting. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have no clue who you are or what this show is, but like, if you want to come to Yankee Stadium, I can hook you up. Like, I don't know. So, and he loves the Yankees. So he's like, yeah. He puts us at this table of like guys from the Michigan frat who were on a bachelor party. They're not in the frat anymore, but like they're 28. They all were in a frat together on a bachelor party. And he's like, "Yeah, hang with these guys. You guys are Jewish from New York. You'll probably get along." So that's what he did. He just like put us at this frat table and like we used their bottle service.
Good for you. Well, then speaking of bars and stuff, I don't think I've ever seen you at Bodega personally. I'm sure you've been there, but are you a Billy's or a Stan's person?
Billy's all the
I knew that
way.
one.
Joey and George are my guys. I am a Billy's lifer. I will die in that place. I will like you will catch that place is my mecca. And I give Joey credit. Surfsides or sun cruisers on ice. It's the only way to do it.
We got to get you to Bodega next year, though.
I've been to Bodega a few times. JJ takes me.
Yeah. I that's the one that JJ takes all of us to. I've never. We got to be a little quieter about it.
I'll tell you my issue about Bodega. I don't really love like getting a big can of stuff to drink. Like I do it at the game, but I would rather get like a Surfside, which they don't sell at Bodega.
Mhm.
I'm big on the Surfsides now. If I have too much of those Bud Light seltzers, I want to throw up. Like I could have like one of them. Otherwise, I don't know. That's the thing with Bodega for me. And like sometimes it's so crowded and so is Billy's, but I guess because I'm like now 2 years into being a Billy's like VIP and like I skip the line. Like
big
you've got to network. You've got to network. I networked Billy's so hard because I was like, I'm going to figure this place out. I'm here way too often to have to wait in that line. So I asked for JJ introduced me to Joey, who's the owner of Billy's. And then I end up meeting his uncle, George, because it's all run by family at Billy's. So I meet the whole fam. And then their cousin Spiro mans the front door. Joey's dad is always sitting in the corner of the bar. We all become besties. And I start like promoting the bar. I start selling their merch. I start doing all this stuff for them. And Spiro is like, "Yeah, you're here way too much. Come on, don't wait." And one time I tried to wait in line and Spiro comes into the line and he gets me and he goes, "Come on. Nope, we're not doing this. Get it in the front." So, and then George will give me shots and I die there. Like like when I say I die there, I physically have videos of me like lights out, no one's home. Like, very bad. So if you see me there and I don't remember, it's because George takes the tequila bottle, pours it in my mouth, and he doesn't let me leave. He tells us Surfsides are what he wakes up and drinks in the morning. That's what he said. He goes, "We don't do that. Shots."
Billy's and Stan's have become my celebratory post-game drink spot. But Bodega to me is my pregame, get the vibes going kind of spot, especially for like a hot summer day. There's nothing like cracking one and walking into the back of Bodega. There's a whole group there.
That place is New York. Like when I have tourists that come into town, I love to show them Bodega just because I think it's the most New York experience of, hey, like we're going to go to some back room and you won't get murdered, I promise.
George and Spiro. So they're Greek, the people who own Billy's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So now I forgot the Greek connection. You have to come with me so that you guys can kumbaya. Cause they go back I think they go back after the in the first month of the off season, they go back to Greece.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
They're there a few times a year. So I'm sure you guys would hit it off. They're the greatest.
So the most nervous that you've been for something in your career?
Oh, good question. Probably my first day at MLB Network doing the gambling show with Maddie, because I did not want to have a bad day. I needed to win. I needed to give out winners. And I was nervous sitting next to Matt Viscursion, who's like the voice of MLB The Show, who everybody knows, who is probably the most talented broadcaster in sports. He's so good, just broadcasting. He's so even keel. I've seen fire and flames, bad reference probably right now with LA, but it could be burning down around us on a show. Everything could be going wrong. I would have probably had a panic attack. He's so calm and cool. But I'll tell you the worst experience I had on air. And that's why I can't say it's the most nervous I was per se, because it was just the worst experience. It was a disaster. In North Carolina, it was my second or third month on the job. And it was, at that point, I knew I was going to mess up things because I was so new. And I think the reason the MLB gig was so nerve-wracking was because you finally make your dream job and you don't want to mess it up. But in North Carolina, so I started in August, so November, it was the high school football playoffs. And I won't go into why, but my boss got suspended and he couldn't help me. And this was a man who's been in this, he was there for 20 years. So he knows all the players. He was the one saving my ass on shows all season, because you're covering 40 high schools. It's not you don't know these kids. You don't know all these players, especially 2 months on the job. You don't know. So he gets suspended and I have to do the whole quarterfinals by myself. And that includes shooting the games. We had some photographers helping, but you're shooting the games, you're editing all the highlights. I had to produce the show and I had to anchor the show. And the games start at 7 and you have to be on air by 11. And I had to do everything. 2 months on the job. I had such a meltdown on air. And at that point, didn't know how to just BS my way on air. I didn't know how to just have that swag to BS my way through.
Mm-hmm.
I was still a nervous 22-year-old who just got out of college. And I the breakdown, the whole show just meant I got through it, but I knew it was bad. It was I didn't remember names. I didn't I was messing up the schools. I was messing up everything. So there were so many emails that came in that day, or the next day, about how I should be fired. WCTI should be ashamed of themselves for putting me on the air. I'm horrible. And obviously being a female, it was even worse. She doesn't know what she's talking about. The sad part is I know the game of football. I just didn't know the players because I was so new, and there was 40 schools and no one helping me, and no one sending you shot sheets. It's not a network where you get all this help. No one's doing that. All we had was the videographer sending in the videos. I had to put the highlights in the show. I had to you just want all the video to make it on air, and you want to make it yourself on air. You don't even, and you're running in and out of commercial breaks, adding more stuff because they're sending you videos from these games at 11:08 and you're in your A block, and now you have to push the game that you were about to cover into the B block so you can get the videos in the commercial break. It was a disaster. And I just was I came out of it hysterically crying. That was the worst. And my boss called me, who was watching, who was suspended. He called me and he goes, just remember, it will never be worse than that.
That's not what you want to hear in that moment.
But he goes, no, he's and I was like, you're right. He goes, Ariel, I promise you that was your rock bottom and you will never. And I tried, I prepped everything, but you can't prepare for those things.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes, I promise you, nothing like that will ever happen to you again. You were just put in a really bad spot and your job's not on the line. Everyone knows that you were given something to do that no one's ever had to do before. But just remember, it can never be worse.
He's right. Your career certainly took off from there. It's been an uphill battle, but an uphill swing since then. You're so gracious for your time. We're so gracious for your time. You've been just terrific with us. So we really appreciate everything, Ariel. Thank you so much for all this.
Oh my gosh, of course. And hopefully it come back on during the baseball season and we're happy.
For sure. So, Stacey, having Ariel Epstein on, how cool was that? Just seeing her career trajectory and her social media presence and everything. I mean, she really is a fascinating guest.
Yeah, and finding out we went to the same high school 20 years apart was pretty interesting.
Yeah, wow. A lot of celebrities have went to that school, it turns out.
Yeah, we did have a few celebrities come out of our high school. Adam Rodriguez was on TV. Will Kinane pitched in the majors for a few years, and
Stacey
Ariel's doing stuff.
Gotsulias,
Yeah,
Ariel Epstein.
no, but that was really good. It was interesting because I'm not, you know me, I'm not really into the betting, but I feel like I need to be more now that we've had Ariel on, and maybe I will be. So maybe she gained another person to use her expertise for props.
It's taken off, and you gotta give her, no pun intended, but props to being ahead of it and being one of the first real social media presences when it comes to all this gambling stuff. I found it fascinating, and you can credit this too, just to being a woman in the industry and the different challenges you guys have unfairly, but that you do have in the industry, getting into the industry, that challenges that I personally didn't have, just because there's the credibility that you got to work towards as a woman because people just don't give it to you, whether that's fair or not. The fact that people like you and Ariel and stuff were able to kind of like break through that crack and break through that mold, I found it really fascinating, the answers that she was giving on the stuff that she's had to do to be able to get that credibility at MLB Network and all the places she's worked at too.
Yeah, you basically have to show the guys who ask you, what was the Yankees 1983 roster? You just have to show them that you're smarter than them.
Yeah, which I guess once you do that, you gain that respect, but you shouldn't have to do that. But, it is fascinating hearing her responses, and a little bit upsetting in a way too, that even, at this modern day point in the industry, still a hardship that people have to go through.
Yeah, I was hoping that, back in the 90s when I started doing, when I was going to school for broadcasting and I told everyone that I wanted to be a sportscaster. They were like, okay, good luck with that. Because
Mhm.
even at that point, there were some women on ESPN, but people were still kind of side eye, like, yeah, okay, good
Yeah.
luck with that. Wink, wink. And I was hoping by now, 30 years later, that it wouldn't be this way, but it still is. And that's just the way it is in sports media.
Yeah, but people like her are changing it. People like you are changing it. So it really was a fascinating interview. You guys, I hope you guys really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball. He keeps you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. You can find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsulias.
And I'm Brian McKeon. We'll catch you for Fan Mail Friday.